Hello there, welcome back to another episode. Today I'm going to talk about Blade Runner 2049, the sequel to the Ridley Scott Blade Runner that is viewed as a classic by many people. I'm not one of them. I think it's a very good film, but I don't think it's a classic. I have problems with Blade Runner. I should say, I've done a video on Blade Runner, and I've talked about Ridley Scott a little bit, my problems with him. Like, he's great visually, but as a director he has lots of script problems. And this film was not... He helped with the general story to start with, and then he backed away and let Denis Villeneuve take over and bring his own people in and develop the script and create this film. It's 2.5 hours long, but it feels a lot more like the original novel than the actual first adaptation, really. I mean, the original novel was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, which is a terrific book. Darkly funny, very existential in a way that's very different from Blade Runner. Blade Runner's existential, but takes it very seriously. Like, this is life or death matters, it seems, in the film. The book's funnier. The book has the existential angst and the idea of what's real and what's not. Like, how do you manipulate yourself to make yourself feel real? How do you manipulate yourself to cope? How do you deal with your family who are also manipulating themselves? How do you deal with reality that's changing, with people who are robots who could just be cruel and unkind and just be a replacement for you? The film goes in a different direction. The film has the robots being... or both films have the robots being soulful and the humans being a lot crueler. In the book, the humans are a lot more confused and the robots are a lot more cruel. So there's a switch around. But, in the first film, is Deckard a replicant or a human? It doesn't answer this one in the sequel. It doesn't matter either way, really. In the sequel, it's much more about this guy who's a replicant, who is a Blade Runner. He is outwardly a replicant. He is a guy who knows who he is, and he's conforming to their view of what a replicant should be, you know. And he's trying to just get by and do his job, but his job is basically killing replicants, other people from his group, you know, of his race basically, and he has to kill them. And it's much more about this idea of how does that affect you and your own internal layers of reality. Like, how does killing your own people affect you? How do you interact with other people who are artificial intelligences, who also have emotions but also have duplicates who have nothing to do with the emotional thing that you put into one version of them, the version you bought for yourself. There's all these weird things of ownership and how things evolve and how things devolve into paranoia, and so it feels a lot more like the original book, where it's funnier about this whole thing of what's human, what's reality, is kind of funny, and what your dreams are funny. You know, what makes up a person, what makes up their dreams, what makes up their reality, where are the pretensions of reality. This film has a lot more of that than the Blade Runner, because Blade Runner was a bit pompous. This one's much more fun. It's actually longer, but actually I think it feels shorter because it's got some humour. It really has humour. The villain is a woman replicant who's trying to please her boss, who's played by Jared Leto, who's this blind guy who builds all these replicants, who thinks he's a god. And it's kind of quietly sending it up, the whole idea of the potentials of the humans and how godlike they feel and how they feel they're breaking through the galaxy. Meanwhile, they can't even feed their own people. People are starving in the streets, everyone's clogged up in all these buildings, and everyone's like attacking replicants, and it's this whole weird idea of humanity's a total mess. But they're all very pretentious about how great they are, and you're seeing them from the replicants' point of view, and the replicants are seeing them as these pretentious fools who don't know what they're doing. You know. And the film is about trying to find this one replicant who is the daughter of Rachel from the first one. Rachel's dead from the start of this film, but she had a daughter with the Harrison Ford character, and the daughter disappeared instantly. You're never quite sure if it's a daughter or a son, but the film's been out for a while now, so I can say it's a daughter. But for a while, the Ryan Gosling character thinks it might have been him, you know, because he's this memory of a past in this area. Even though he shouldn't have a memory of a past because he's a replicant, so he's just been built as a replicant. And he's been monitored as a replicant. He's got a memory of a past that's of this other place that he shouldn't know. And of course, it's an implant. He's been implanted with this false memory to try and make people look to him rather than what the reality is. So it becomes this funny idea of this thing's been built, has actually created so many emotions, it's confused about its own reality. It starts to end up sleeping with other replicants, to interact with them, and they're kind of, even though he's very repressed about himself and his place in humanity and his place in his own kind, and he's got this girlfriend who has no body, who's this like mass market model who a lot of people buy as basically as a programmed slave for them in their houses. He's given her a lot more autonomy to actually grow beyond her programming, and he starts to fall in love with her. And all these weird confused ideas about how do you deal with women, how do you deal with replicants, how do you deal with humans. And it's hilarious, but it's very deadpan, and it doesn't tell you this is meant to be funny. It's like you're meant to find the humour, on your own. It's like a funny situation, and his character's like almost a silent film tragedy without knowing it, because he's fallen through all these mistakes and not seeing it. He takes himself so seriously, but because Ryan Gosling's playing him, he has a humorous feel to him, like a wry feel to him as an actor, that it allows for the kind of humour to be there without being noted. So it allows the film to be a lot warmer, a lot funnier, even though he's playing a robot. You sense his problems, and he's taking it seriously, but there's a humorous side to it. Like he's so impressed with these robot hookers who ends up using to give body to his bodiless girlfriend so he can actually sleep with her. And it's all weirdly kinky and strange, and it shows you how weird emotions can get and how programming can evolve beyond what it should have been. And you've seen all these replicants now kind of rebelling, which is the reason why there's a Blade Runner. But they're rebelling underground and not telling when they're rebelling, so they're just floating through society. And people know they're there, but no one knows who's real and who's not, who's on your side, who's not. And they're trying to find a girl, because the girl shows that replicants can actually replicate without the humans controlling it, and they actually can become a race of their own. So that's important, because the humans want to find out how that happens, so it will help them A, stop it, and B, replicate better. And it just becomes this comedy of weirdness, of all these weird human interactions that have been stunted, all these interactions that are stunted. You find Deckard, his life's been a mess. He had to hide from out the world to help his daughter escape. And his life's going nowhere, basically. And all he's doing is reading books, reading all these fantasies to try and make sense of his life and getting drunk a lot. He's got a dog, and he's asked, is the dog real or not? And Decker's like, I don't care. It's there. It's something. And Decker's really paranoid. And the whole emotional arc of the story is Deckard finally seeing his daughter again. It turns out his daughter's this woman who makes all these false memories for the robots, the replicants, so they can survive in the world, to give them a false memory, an emotional memory to actually, even though they know they're built, they have a false memory that gives them emotional stability. The thing is, what the humans don't realise is this one woman who's creating these is part replicant, or fully replicant, born that way, and she's given images to the replicants to actually grow beyond the programming, so that there's something else, so that will evolve beyond what the humans deem necessary for them. So it's a very moving, funny story. I think it's a lot more moving than the original. It's got a much more of a heart to it. It's much more sympathetic to the plight of the replicants in some way. I mean, I think the problem the first one is, for me, is Rutger Hauer's replicant. Yeah, he was a sad character, but he was also a brutal killer who was a total sociopath. So Yeah, when you see that he's sad he's going to die and all those experiences he's going to lose when he dies, yeah, that strikes home as a human emotion. But I could never get behind the character because the character was a sociopath. You know, in this one the characters are much more nuanced as the replicants and the humans, and it feels much more interesting. It's a much more interesting film. It's a much more nuanced film about the problem of the replicants, and there's a lot more respect for the original book and the humour of the existential angst of the book in this film. It just feels much more like they read the book and realised there's a lot of stuff here they didn't use in the first film that we can use. You know, and the whole idea is you're into situations, you're not quite sure who's human, who's replicant, and does it matter? Are you different from what you think you are? You know, and it just becomes this whole existential situation. So it's a wonderful film. I highly recommend it. I'm going to try and do the Denis Villeneuve's film, The Arrival, soon as well. But I haven't got it to yet. I need to rewatch it. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back soon with another video. Right, bye for now.